Today is May 30th, 2023. Thank you for joining us. We're in the Busher conference room. Those of us who are online for the special meeting of the Burlington City Council. The time is 5:07. We'll begin our agenda this evening with item 1.01, which is a motion to adopt the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'd move.
Thank you, Councillor Bergman, seconded by Councillor Carpenter. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to to adopt our agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say no. We have an agenda, and I'll note that Councillors Hightower, Jang, Grant, and Shannon are all joining us via Zoom. Thanks so much for being here. We'll go to our next agenda item, which is item 2.01, the public forum. Normally we conduct public forum, as we all know, with a process of submitting forms, either in person or online. And as this is a limited agenda and a limited, probably a limited public forum, there doesn't appear to be anyone in the Busher conference room who's a member of the public. However, there may be people online. If there are people that are online joining us via Zoom, and you wish to be recognized, we'll give you a second here to just simply raise your hand, and then we'll call on you. So if there are any community members who wish to address the council in public forum, now would be the time. You just use the raise hand function. Going once. Going twice. We will close the public forum at 5:09 and move on to our deliberative agenda. The third item on our agenda is 3.01, which is Meli et al. Versus the City of Burlington et al. The purpose of this agenda item is to vote on a settlement that has been reached between the parties. For a brief update and just to give us a understanding of globally what we're voting on and then what the process is going forward, I'll turn to the Assistant City Attorney, Jared Kelleran.
Good afternoon, councilors. As we have been discussing, there is a tentative settlement agreement here between the city and the Melis. And for the reason that it is tentative, we advise that the contents of the settlement agreement remain confidential at this time, because they are not final until the point that both parties have signed that tentative agreement. It has been presented to the court, and the court considers the stipulated settlement agreement, and if they accept it, at which time that would finalize the litigation. Until such time as it's finalized by the court, things could hypothetically change. We don't expect that to be the case, but they are sensitive, and so at this point we still would counsel you all to keep those terms of the stipulated agreement confidential, and at which point they do become finalized, we can then release it to the public. It's also an exemption under the Public Records Act. You all are familiar with that, I think. And if someone from the public was to seek the tentative negotiated agreement at this point, it would be subject to an exemption of the Public Record Act, because again, it isn't finalized by the court. And until that happens, we can't release it, but at which point it does become finalized, we will then be able to provide the public with a copy of the finalized agreement, which we intend to do, and I know that's the city's intention as well. So just wanted to let you all know that and see if there were any questions.
Yes, thanks for that brief update. Certainly before we would go to a vote on this tentative settlement, if there are any questions from the council, now would be the time. And I'll also look on the screen in front of me if there are any councilors who have any questions.
I have one brief one, which is that given the tentative nature of this, given that there is going to probably be some further communications that we'll be making to the public, I would ask that the administration keep the council in particular apprised of everything that's going on very, very closely, and also to the extent to which we can be able to be involved in any statements or communications that are being crafted, that we be involved in that. So it is a request that I am making, because I think that it would be most appropriate that we are.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. We'll certainly keep the council appraised each step of the way as this moves towards finalization. I will say, as we discuss it, I will share this one element of the executive session discussion. The agreement specifically calls for a statement worked out between the Meli brothers and the mayor. So I think that's going to, I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of opportunity for consultation there, but I understand that interest.
Thank you for noting that, and I do think it would be prudent to advise them and for us to be to the extent possible involved. And I have a hard time seeing how that could not be possible, but you never know. So I appreciate a certain amount of flex on that, but we really hope that you can do everything you can to make that happen.
I hear what you're saying, Councilor Bergman.
Thank you.
Understood.
Thanks so much. Councilor Bergman, are there any other questions before we go to a motion? Okay, then seeing none, we'll go to a motion. I've asked Councilor Bergman to make that motion.
So
That
I
would be
would
that time.
I would move the acceptance of the tentative agreement pending further action by the court, and that is in light of our conversations in executive session. Do not need the floor back.
Attorney Pellerin, is that a close enough approximation of the written out?
If you can just add that you authorize the mayor to sign the tentative settlement agreement, that would be appreciated.
Yes, and would here, let me read it directly. To move to approve and authorize the mayor in conjunction with the city attorney's office to enter into a stipulated settlement agreement in a pending matter captioned Meli et al. Versus the city of Burlington, Vermont et al.
Thank you so much, Councilor Bergman. I just need a second to that motion. Seconded by Councilor Carpenter. Is there any further discussion on? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor, are you okay, by the way, with a non-roll call vote? Is that? All those in favor of the motion, if you could just say aye, please.
Aye.
Okay.
And are there any opposed? So that motion passes, and that motion passes unanimously. I am looking around to make sure that there are 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, which means, oh, and we have one absent. That is Councilor Travers.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So we will move on to the last item on the agenda before we adjourn, which is item 4.01, a communication regarding CityPlace. And I did see CEDO Director Brian Pine, Consultant David White, and Tim Sampson, who is right behind me. Sorry, I apologize. Who are here for this update. As this is a discussion regarding a contractual matter. There is an expected executive session. Before we go into the motions for executive session, we normally go to either the administration, city attorney, CAO, if you have any update that you can provide for the community in open session.
Sure, I'm happy to thank you, President Paul. This is an executive session, another executive session. We've had many over the years about CityPlace. The reason for this executive session is we want to update the council on where the project stands, and with respect particularly to upcoming actions that the city is going to be taking. One of these actions you've already approved, which is we do intend to borrow $18.8 million for TIF investment later in the month of June. As we talked about last November, when the council approved the development agreement so that the local partners could move forward and start putting concrete in the ground. Sorry.
I think he got here after. Did he vote on that?
He wasn't president.
He got here right after. Hey, this is incredibly important, and I apologize for interrupting you. Please go ahead.
Councilors who were here, which I know is not everyone, will remember back in November when you approved the latest ARDA 2.0. Our attorney, Tim Sampson, who you hear from tonight, said publicly and privately that it was likely that future amendments were going to be necessary. And it's now been about 8 or so months since that vote. The project has evolved, and there are some updates to it that we think should be reflected in the updated ARDA agreement, and we think that should be done in advance of the bonding or the debt being incurred in later June. So no votes is anticipated tonight. What we are anticipating doing in executive session is laying out the changes that are going to be necessary in the ARDA for the council, and then we would come back, we take your input on that. Excuse me, come back and have a vote, public vote on an updated agreement, likely next Monday on the 5th. So that, I think, is my best summary of the plan, President Paul.
Great, thank you so much. And again, my apologies, but I'm going to find myself out of order. My apologies. I thought there was a chance that I may have miscounted on the last item. So with that, thank you so much. With that, I'll go to Councilor Carpenter. If you could please make a motion, the first motion regarding the executive session.
I would move that the council find that premature general knowledge of the information concerning contract negotiations and attorney-client communications regarding CityPlace clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage for such negotiations.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Is there a second to that? Thank you, Councilor McGee. Is there any discussion on the first motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as laid out by Councilor Carpenter, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. And with that, we'll go to the second motion, Councilor Carpenter.
I would move based upon that finding, move that the council go into executive session to receive confidential attorney-client communications and updates on contract negotiations regarding CityPlace 1 DSA subsections 313A, 1A, and F.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter, seconded by Councilor McGee. Motion is made to go into executive session. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. That motion passes unanimously. So we will go into executive session. Then we'll come out of executive session really for purposes of adjourning the meeting. There will be, as the mayor has said, no action taken when we return to open session. CEO Shad, did everyone, I check my email, did everyone get an email about a Zoom link going into executive session?
Chief of Staff Rideau, was it I have to a safety meeting? It's yeah. We'll send it out right now.
Okay, so to Councilors Jang, Grant, Hightower, Shannon, and Travers, we will be sending you a link momentarily. You can stay on or until you get that or get off, and we'll